Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy. Here we are in November. You and I were talking about the years going up, and this is our favorite time of year to
Absolutely
celebrate life together and holidays. And we were talking briefly about with what happened with Michelle, going to see the Lord. We're going to do a little bit differently this year, go up to Vail, still have Thanksgiving and do all the things we like to do, but do it in a new location.
Yeah.
It'll be kind of fun for us. And
a lot of times that's nice just to be able to get away from some of the physical reminders that jar the emotion in that time,
right.
And just have some fresh memories there.
Yeah. And the emotion is, as Linda and I are processing it through, is it's both, constant reminder of the joy and the wonder and even the depth that God has given us about how her life is spectacular.
Right.
And she is experiencing covenant life and all. And the one thing that I got a great insight about that is that what particularly when you have someone that you think died prematurely. Mm-hmm. Linda and I, we've actually talked about this. That we're at the age where, that sometime.
Right.
Sometime
it will come.
It's going to come, in the next X years. And obviously we're closer to that than we've ever been. But, we're thinking about that a little bit of, well, we've had a grand life. Mm-hmm. We had a full life as we've experienced the beauty. And we count it a privilege, more than a privilege, that as we were maturing in our faith, that God led us, Linda and I, to abiding, to unity, to walking in the Spirit, to covenant, to discerning His will, which is best and none better. All the things that we've been able to receive. Mm-hmm. And He taught me one thing early when I was going through this, because I was always a great student, and a great student was I could retain information. Mm-hmm. So I could read something and keep it. Basically, I can picture it.
Right, and you still retain that ability.
And I have that ability. I can go back and just kind of flip through my library and And one thing, by the way, it drives Linda crazy because the way that I was given was I have really an ability to record everything. Mm-hmm. Visually and audibly. And so I could be in a room with Linda, watching television, reading a book, listening to her talk, and of course I'm not actually listening.
Right. But you're recording facts enough that you can drive her crazy.
I record, and she'll say, "Rich, you're not listening to me." And I'll say, "Yeah." I say, "Yes, I am. You just said," and I can repeat exactly what she just said. Not that I actually.
But you weren't listening.
But all I did was replay a tape, and so He gave me this great ability to retain information. Mm-hmm. And as a student, in school and grad school and seminary, I could read things and retain it. And the Bible was a book that I retained information about. As I started to learn relationship and started to relearn abiding and started to learn what it meant to walk with Him, it was, I'm going to teach you these things, and you have to stay with it until you experience it. Mm-hmm. Not that you learn about it, which I know you can do easily.
Right.
But I'm not going to release you until you actually learn to live it.
Yeah.
And so when Linda and I say we had a grand life, it's not that, we learned a lot about Jesus, but our life was kind of crummy. it became grand because we actually experienced the grand life of God.
Right.
And so
Experiencing it day in, day out.
And so we rejoice at that. And we talked about if he's, he takes us anytime now, that he decides to take us, we will have zero regrets. We've had a great life. And people around us, we want them to actually celebrate that, yeah, you had a grand life, but we know where you are, and there's nothing there that you didn't experience. Well, with Michelle, a youngster, that's your big question.
It feels like a life cut short, right?
That's a good word to put it. It seems cut short. She didn't get to experience all the things that I think she might have been able to experience. And God said to me, why would you say that? Well, because I didn't get to see her experience it. He says,
right.
You don't understand eternity. You don't understand my life. She's experiencing everything that she didn't experience there. And don't think that she's not. And her life didn't get cut short. It's just in a different place.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. So we've had some, great rejoicing at that. And the other side of it, on the grief side, is we know that you experience that finality, that you can't talk to her anymore. You can't have her with you anymore. You can't do things that you normally do, like holidays, that we'll be bringing up. So we're gonna be working at that. So you and I have talked about prayer, and that prayer isn't a mechanical wish list. It's not a God, would you? It's here's my plan. Would you bless my plan? It's rather to get into a place where we walk with him just like the disciples did. And I want to keep reiterating this so that everybody pictures it. You can imagine the disciples' relationship with Jesus that he had for 3 years. And then he basically said, hey, by the way, guys, and my children, after this, prayer life looks like that. It's just walking with me. It's dialoguing with me. It's me talking to you, you talking to me, processing. I can interrupt. I can say things. I can guide you. I can direct you. That's what prayer is supposed to be. So it's relationship. And we learned
and
that.
authentic. Authentic as you walk in, day out, not trying to hide what you're thinking, feeling, or wondering, but having authentic conversation about it as well.
Okay. And when you think about that, what you just said, believers a lot of times look at Scripture as law. I'm trying to do the things that I think I'm supposed to do in order for me to have this good Christian life. And God says, you got it all backwards. And this is really interesting. And you and I talked about this at our podcast recently about the end times, where we were talking about perfection, is that if you say, I have a heart to follow God, okay, I'm going to go do and fix this thing. I'm going to go perform correctly. He says, you just walked away from me.
Right. Trying to do it on your own strength, power, will.
And you do it on your own. So he says, because we're emotional, and because we have thoughts, and because we have disappointments, and we have struggles, he doesn't say, go take care of all that, and then come and pray to me, come walk with me. He just says, just come to me and share with me everything going on, and what you called an authentic heart. Well, how do you feel about this? What do you think about this? Are you angry? Are you frustrated? Are you upset? Are you wondering how come? One of the questions I had through the whole Michelle process is the very question we just talked about, is why would you take her prematurely? I don't get this.
Right.
It wasn't, I got to go figure that out and then hope I get it right. Why don't I just take my authentic heart and say, man, I'm really struggling with this.
Right.
Could you please talk to me? Help me understand this. What do you have to say to me? And guide me. Like one of the questions is, she got her life cut short. And see, it's not I guess that's it. It's, Father, it seems to me she had her life cut short. Help me help me process that.
Right.
And interesting enough, and this is what happened to me. He says, well, why would you say that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because she's not here anymore. And I
Right.
know there's
In
certain
my
things.
parameters, what I had pictured for her is cut short.
Yeah. And I didn't see or experience some of the things that I knew that she would like to have experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, well, why do you think that doesn't continue?
Mm.
You see how prayer goes? It's not,
Right.
Rich, you need to get this and get it straight, and you better get it right. It's well, and actually what he does is invite us to that authentic place.
Right.
Well, why do you think that? Why do you feel that way? Why have you concluded that? Are you so sure that that's correct?
Right.
Let me tell you something about that. And then all of a sudden,
And he begins to give you pieces of more information that help you to see what he has to say about it, right?
And so because of it, we're now experiencing a new element in our life, and I can tell you that I really understand a little bit more about eternity than I've ever thought before, because I'm faced with it.
Right.
And he says, let me help you understand it. Not theologically, which I could have learned, in seminary, so to speak, but now that you're in the middle of it,
right,
and you have real authentic questions and authentic doubts and authentic wondering, how about if I help you with that?
right. And isn't that real? I mean, that's the beauty of taking things from head knowledge to heart knowledge to walking it out in experience.
Yeah,
and it's a journey that he takes us on. We can't take ourselves there.
No.
We just go with him.
No. And part of it is that, I could have even asked him, 5 years ago, well, what does it mean when people's lives are cut short? He said, well, I'm not ready to show you that yet, but I will, don't worry, And so it's about timing and about, his desire to use our current living to let me show you something new now. Let me,
Right.
and that's why the beauty of the relationship in prayer is, and I think you keep emphasizing this, which I appreciate, is it's not mechanical. It's not law. It's not go do and be better. It's just come with who you are, talk to me, and I'll walk you through it, and just have a heart to walk with me. That's it.
Right.
And we talked about, when what we consider what's called the Lord's Prayer, which is actually the way we're supposed to pray. So it's really our prayer. It's not a form. It's rather, pray to Dad in heaven, our Father. It's your personal dad. He cares for you. He's the Almighty and can do all things. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done.
Right.
So are you living in the kingdom? And again, that's surrendered to his will, the king. And I'm with him, desiring to walk with him. And therefore, I'm not telling him to bless my plan, but rather, I know you're the king and you have the answers. I'm coming to you, and I want to be with you.
Right.
Where all the power happens, where all the revelation happens. And then
I think I've shared
Go ahead.
before. I have a friend who actually, everybody's got different names for their time, their abide time, their quiet time, their Jesus time, all kinds of, she calls that time she spends that's set apart in the morning with him, her surrender time.
That's a good one.
And I think that's such a beautiful picture of what you're talking about, honestly.
Yeah, it really is. And so as we understand that, then thy kingdom come, thy will be done. On every situation, I'm going to ask you, what is your will? And could you explain your will and show me your will, which is going to be best and none better. It's going to lead me to covenant life, blessed to be a blessing. You're going to resolve my issues. You're going to take me to peace. You're going to give me the fruit of the Spirit. I have a heart to go. And then the other elements of it are, make sure you live today, not in the future, not in the past. Make sure you live in forgiveness. Which is the nature of God, not reconcile, but just that you have a freedom about that.
Right.
And then you are understanding that you're asking God to drive you deeper away from selfishness, where temptation happens, and protection from the evil one is going to throw grenades at us. And then he says, as you understand that, he then goes into a story. And Jesus is really he's beautiful all the way through the Gospels, because he keeps giving, what's called parables, or how about, what about, suppose. So he
Mm-hmm.
gives this little story. He just gave us, here's how I want you to pray.
Mm-hmm.
And stay in relationship with me and always be with me in the kingdom and seek my will. And then he says, suppose. Okay, read verses. This is Luke 11. We just went through 1 to 4. Read verses 5 to 8. This interesting
Sure.
story.
And he said to them, which of you shall have a friend and go to him at midnight and say to him, Friend, lend me 3 loaves, for a friend of mine has come to me on his journey, and I have nothing to set before him. And he will answer from within and say, Do not trouble me. The door is now shut, and my children are with me in bed. I cannot rise and give to you. I say to you, though he will not rise to give to him because he is his friend, yet because of his persistence, he will rise and give him as many as he needs.
Yeah. So Jesus used stories to illustrate something.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to help us understand it because he said, well, you can relate to this
Mm-hmm.
and let me help you understand what that means. So he says, suppose a friend comes to you at midnight and says, I need this stuff. And he keeps knocking on the door. And your response is, what? No. I'm
already in bed. Come on.
My kids are with me. Everything's all settled. And no, I'm not going to get up and help you because it's not the right time.
Right.
And the guy keeps knocking. And he says, okay, I'm going to get up and give it to you. He says, no, I want you to understand something. It's not because you're my friend.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because you're my relative. You're part of my family. It's because of what?
Your persistence.
Persistence.
You didn't quit bugging me.
You didn't stop. You kept going after it, and you wouldn't stop. And because you didn't stop, I'm going to get it to you. Okay, now, this is where we have to keep going because we have to ask God about, well, what exactly does that mean?
Right.
Because a lot of people,
does that mean I just need to pray harder, pray harder, pray harder?
Yeah, it basically means, so it looks like the story says, if I just knock hard enough, long enough, God, I want, eventually I wear them out.
Right.
And he just says, okay.
Like a toddler to a parent,
right? Because you were so good at asking for this, I'll give it to you. I guess I'll give it to you. Mm-hmm. Okay, now, this is where we have to look at all and everything that's involved here. Now, we just learned something in the first 4 verses.
Right.
What is it that we're supposed to ask for?
His will.
His will. He says, well, first of all, you're with me by definition because you're knocking on my door. So he says, so you're in the kingdom. But he says persistence is, are you asking me for my will? Okay, now, think about how simple this is. Why would you be persistent until what?
Persistent until you know what his will is.
Well, until you know what it is. In other words, just because you don't get it at the moment. I'm looking to you not to get discouraged and to say, okay, I guess I'm not going to get it. I'm going home. He says, no, stay here and keep asking me.
Right.
And keep pursuing it, because he's implying something here, and we're going to go into this next, is that I know that your preference would be, okay, what's your will? How do we want him to answer that?
Oh, what's our will is.
Well, with what we want, we said, let me help you out here a little bit.
Right.
But
I'll give you some ideas if you want.
What's your will? And we want him to give us the answer completely.
Oh, yeah.
Just tell me the answer. Hey, I'm looking at a new job. Am I supposed to take it or not? Just give me the answer.
And make it crystal clear.
And make it
like
clear.
I'll hear people say, I like it when he just bops me over the head with it.
Yeah.
So
what we want is an answer, which he says, I'm going to get you. But the question is it clear to you? And think about, and this is something we need to understand. His will is a path, not a destination.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that, are we on the right path, processing step by step by step, as we now uncover his will, and not just give me the punchline and make it happen,
Right.
and then I'll see you later. So that we have to phrase it properly. And that's why he says persistence is critical, is, do you have clarity?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the next step? And let me help you. So like, for example, Joshua, when he went into across the Jordan into the promised land, he did hear God give him a promise.
Mm-hmm.
What did God say to him?
That land would be his. He would get to go
this
to
land is going to be yours.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you that's the path,
Mm-hmm.
and it will be available to you to receive it. Okay, now did Joshua say, great, I don't need to be persistent anymore. I can just go, I can just relax. God, when you take care of all that, let me know and I'll go occupy it. What did God say?
No, it was a step by step, him leading and stepping in obedience and having to follow God's direction to step into the promise.
So it was, yes, God gives promises. I'm going to resolve this for you. Yes, I'm going to bless you with this. No, this isn't going to happen to you. But it doesn't matter. Okay, great. Persist in following each step of the way, his will, like Joshua had to, so that as he crossed the Jordan, okay, and here's what I want you to do. And we're going to go to Jericho first, and we're going to march around the city 7 times. And blow the trumpet, and the walls are going to fall in, and you're going to go occupy it and defeat the enemy. And he did. And he was obedient to that. Did God ever again tell him, well, just now that you learned that, just keep doing that to every city?
No.
No.
Absolutely not.
It was, you can't take this first situation and say, now I know, I'll take care of it from here. Because
don't we do that? Don't we try to do that often? Just try to take the shortcut. And I saw God do it this way this time, so I'm going to just do it that way again and try to skip the whole process of asking him.
Yeah, that works. So
we do it all the time.
All the time.
Unsuccessfully, by the way.
Yeah, and then the next city was Ai. And he said, oh, we got this one. And they went down there by themselves without checking in with God. They got routed, defeated, comes back. Joshua, is sorrowful. Interesting enough, even Joshua, who spent 40 years wandering around with the belief that he's going to go, got to go in faith. And the first thing he says when he gets routed is, I knew we should have stayed in Egypt. God isn't going to deliver this.
Oh.
I knew we made a mistake. We're going back. And of course, God says, for heaven's sakes, get up. You made 2 mistakes, son. You've heard my promise. You're on the right path. However,
right.
This next step,
you didn't check in.
You stopped persisting, seeking my will. And you said you could handle it by yourself, and you didn't check in with me. And you already know something. You can't assume anything.
Right.
It's every step has to be processed through to fulfill all that I've said to you. And then 2 is, had you said that to me and said, well, what do you have to say about this? I would have told you something. You've got sin in the camp. I told you when you went to Jericho not to take their stuff personally.
Right.
And you've got somebody
someone did.
in your camp did that. And we're not going any further until you resolve that issue. Because you got a heart issue. You got an issue. And that's why as we're seeking his will, it's even when, Linda and I were processing with, why are you delaying taking Michelle? He said, well, actually, the reason is your heart. You got a problem here. You haven't released her. You have some anger toward
Right.
choices that she made.
And he wanted to give you time for him to tend to that.
And I've got to tend to that. So no, I'm not going to, you know what I'm going to do or know what is happening, but this little step is about your heart. And I care about that heart. So he said to Joshua, if you would have taken care of that, so if you take care of it, we can start again. Now, this is really interesting. If Joshua would have said, and we have examples of this in Scripture, I'm not doing it, what would have happened?
Well, he'd have been in trouble again there.
He would have never made the promised land.
Right.
Because yes, I know the promise, but
But you have to step into it, and you walk with him into it.
the promise is potential, not guaranteed.
Right.
And that we have a great example of that is actually the Israelites before that. Interesting enough, what did God say to them? I'm taking to the promised land.
He wanted to give them the promised land.
And they said, what? We're not going.
Right.
We're not willing to go. Okay. You've just thwarted my ability to deliver to you, and you're going to wander around outside of my will for the next 40 years, and you're all going to die outside of my will. Because persistence isn't beating God's door down to get him to do your will. It's persistently staying with him so that I know his will, the path that I'm on, and then step by step by step, am I getting clarity? Am I understanding? Is it clear to me that I know what you're going to do and what you want me to do next? And sometimes it's real easy, and sometimes it takes a process, which we're going to get into. So when you look at, I'm not giving this because you're a child of God. The requirement is you have to be persistent. Persistent to what? Stay with me, stay with me, stay with me until you have clarity, understanding, and know my will for the path you're on, and then the next step that I've asked you to go. And that's on basically your responsibility to stay with it. If you walk away, you've stopped seeking
He'll
my
let you walk away. Right.
You stop seeking my will, and I can't give it to you. So it's really an important element of persistence is don't quit, don't give up, don't get discouraged, always stay with it. Now, by the way, he has to fulfill that, which he said he will. So it's not like, well, I'm never going to tell you.
Right.
It's no, I'll tell you. So it's persistence. So as we think about this little story, it's, think about what we're building here in terms of the relationship is you're going to have to ask for my will. And I need you to stay with me until you know my will, which, by the way, is just a step. And the reason you got to keep staying with me is that there's a next step and a next step
Right.
and a next step. It's a path, not a destination. So
And
really,
there's
really
beauty and
important stuff.
intimacy in that.
Yeah. So we'll pick this up and the next thing where he goes into, he says, okay, now here's how you are to be persistent. And he tells us how to do it. We'll do that tomorrow.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Such a beautiful truth for us to all unpack. And if you have questions, be sure to send them in at questions@afjministry.com, and we will talk about those on the air. Hope you guys have a great afternoon.
Yep. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.